The tit-for-tat between the U.S. and China is escalating. China this morning is announcing a 125% tariff on U.S. imports. This is up from the 84% it announced on Wednesday and now matches the 125% additional reciprocal tariffs the U.S. imposed on China this week. The 20% fentanyl tariffs remain in effect, bringing the total additional tariffs on China to 145%. Chinese President Xi Jinping saying today his country is not afraid. Still, President Trump is not ruling out a potential deal with China or other countries.
How close are you to the first country coming to actually make a deal with the United States over tariffs? Is it days, months?
Well, I think it's very close, but, we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to.
You wouldn't extend the pause?
Yeah. We'll have to see what happens at that time.
As the White House entertains conversations with several world leaders, President Trump is now threatening to impose more tariffs against Mexico over a water dispute at the southern border. The president on Truth Social is accusing Mexico of owing Texas more than 1 million acre-feet of water in violation of a decades-old water treaty between the U.S. and Mexico. The president saying online, "My agricultural secretary, Brooke Rollins, is standing up for Texas farmers, and we will keep escalating consequences, including tariffs and maybe even sanctions, until Mexico honors the treaty and gives Texas the water they are owed." Also happening this morning, President Trump is doing his annual physical exam. The president expressing confidence, saying he's never felt better, but these things must be done.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball!
Wasn't expecting my nearly naked body flying through AIs of every memorable historic political moment on the screen to start this show. But how about it? You never know what's next when Jerry is your meme maker. And so thank you for that one, Jerry. And thank you to the 3 million subs on this channel. This has been a hard grind over the last couple of years. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we out ya. We are so very back. We are levels of back we've never been before. And why not, ladies and gentlemen? It's Free for All Friday. Let's freaking go. Friday, April 11th, 2025. We're back in the saddle. Yesterday, we were at the PBD podcast. I have a couple of little clips for you there, but we're always happy to be back inside of our humble studio here. Jeez, I mean, they're like operating out of an entire airport down there. It's wild. We'll show you that in just a second. Tulsi Gabbard drops bombs on electronic voting machines. Will they be illegal by next election? That's certainly what this program wants. We'll give you all of the data and evidence and show you how easy it is to hack one. Something you shouldn't want if you're a defender of democracy. Reminder of that. 6 killed in Hudson River helicopter crash. What the hell is going on there? Meanwhile, planes are smashing into each other on the runway in DCA again. This time, members of Congress affected. What will happen next? Well, we will see. Too many DEI hires. That's what we've confirmed. And we will show you all the evidence of that, ladies and gentlemen. Big time bombshell drops from the FBI on Russiagate, the collusion, and it's dirtier than you could possibly imagine. Will anyone go to jail? Will I have a long gray beard? Will I look like the old grandpa monkey out of Donkey Kong by the time somebody goes to prison? Sitting here with my cane hunched over in a rocking chair? I don't know. Send him to jail, please. We're waiting for it. We'll wait with Trump cabinet administrator Lee Zeldin for the EPA. He'll be on the show, along with Representative Scott Perry, absolute flamethrower from Pennsylvania, and Jeffrey Harmon of Angel Studios to talk about how he's defeating woke Disney. And it's going to be a very, very rowdy show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Okay, so we went to PBD yesterday. Sorry that we weren't on not live. I know that we always try and announce these things, but maybe we didn't do as good of a job as we could have to let you know that we'd be here. The podcast is ripping. We had a blast. If you watched, we hope that you did. Yeah, it was just like really fun being a flamethrower on the program, and then seeing everything that they're doing there on the show is really neat. They have an awesome studio. Do we have the clip of me signing the wall? I got to sign their wall right next to Donald Trump's signature. It was awesome. They have like this big banker vault sort of thing there. Zoom in on that. You can see there on the side, they have a giant banker vault situation. Anyway, whatever. It was really fun. Don't worry about it, Klein. Killer Klein got to flex with me next to a, there it is. Okay. Killer Klein got to flex with me next to a massive Hulk statue and a Joker there. So that's what we were doing. We're having fun. It was a rip-roaring 2.5 hour long podcast, and I encourage you to check it out. We are out here fighting for America first, and that is exactly what we did on the podcast. Come on, punch in, John Klein. Show the people, Klein. Show the people. Killer Klein was doing like jiu-jitsu moves at the airport waiting while we were waiting. And then as soon yeah, we also had an issue. So I have a buddy who has a little plane, and he flew us because it's very annoying. It's really annoying. Oh, here's Klein doing jiu-jitsu. It's very annoying there's no flights from Tampa into Fort Lauderdale, and they operate at this like teeny airport in Fort Lauderdale. And so we took this like little plane, and my buddy's a pilot. And so he flew us there. And we were trying to get up to the studio, and the gate wouldn't open. And so we climbed the gate. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Officially, I am a border wall jumper. Let's go.
Now, let me tell you what did happen earlier today that everybody on the news is reacting to. So at the border, this guy's, did you see this clip of the guy jumping? So there's this, Rob, if you can prepare this. So there's a guy. Look at this immigrant, illegal immigrant.
What is this?
Flies in, press plane.
What is this? These
flies
are the kind
in
of
on
people.
a plane.
Okay. We need these people out of our country.
This is the border. This guy just comes over.
Who the hell is that?
No.
Eagle
Look at this guy.
Airfield.
So he looks European, like maybe even a German going to Argentina.
Maybe Russian.
Watch this.
What
Oh,
this guy works out.
Show.
This guy works out.
Look at this.
Barbed wire? Dude, what kind of wall do we have?
What? And he's in shorts?
Look at this guy's legs. What a stud.
That is. Who is this guy?
Third world scum.
That's Klein.
And there's a Chinese guy. Oh my! Benny comes in
He's got to go
style,
home.
bro.
They've got to go home.
And he's got a backpack full of fentanyl.
Mule. There's his mule.
That's his mule.
He's a cartel. This guy's a cartel, and he's got his mule with him.
What a drug dealer.
What's going on?
Benny, that's a gangster-ass move right
Build
there.
the wall.
Wow. You didn't want to wait.
Guys, I told you, walls don't work. You can go
Guys,
over it.
last but not
Gotta
least.
go home. Got to send him home. And we did send ourselves home. Now we're home. Okay, so we're happy about that. Anyway, the end. That's why we didn't have a show yesterday, but we were ready to rock this morning. Donald Trump being very feisty this morning. President Trump posted this clip. I love it when President Trump is shitposting Hillary Clinton. It's just my favorite style of President Trump posting. Posting this clip of Hillary Clinton this morning. It is a proof that Hillary Clinton copied all of her best ideas from Donald Trump. Here's Hillary running for president in 2008. Tell me if this sounds familiar.
So I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes. And you have to try to learn English. And you have to wait in line.
Wow, you have to learn how to learn English? You have to wait in line? Otherwise, we'll deport you. And Democrats cheer. They're roaring. How fast has that party fallen? That was 10 years ago. How quickly did that party collapse? Wokeness, man, a virus that murders the brainstem. Just destroyed. Hillary Clinton is there. I just can't get over it. Play the clip. Just play beside. Look at this. These are Democrats roaring with applause for Hillary saying she's going to deport people for being criminals, for being here illegally, and for not learning English. They roar with applause. It's a pretty sad state when you can change, when your entire party can like turn on a dime like that. It means you just don't. It means you have no moral clarity. You have nothing actually grounding you. You're simply the ravenous consumers of power, and you just want to bring as much of that power unto yourself as possible. So you'll rig our immigration systems, you'll rig our election systems, and that is the topic of today's show. Let me rewind the clock back just a couple of years past that clip of Hillary Clinton to show you a wild, neck-snapping Democrat Party that was advocating for paper ballots. This is Kamala Harris. This is before she was selected as the DEI candidate to be Joe Biden's backup. And she's sitting there in the side of the Senate. She's a senator at this time from California. And she's saying, you know that our biggest problem is in this country? Electronic voting machines that can be hacked by a foreign power. We need paper ballots. We need election security. This is insane how we run our elections. Here's Kamala Harris.
Systems to audit, but also what they can do around best practices and best machinery. We are talking with them about the fact that it is probably best that you do not have your election system connected to the internet, because that will create greater vulnerabilities. And then look at where we are now in this year of our Lord 2018. We're talking about paper ballots, but that actually might be one of the smartest systems. Going back to, a day when we could have something tangible that we can hold on to, because Russia cannot hack a piece of paper like they can a computer system connected to the internet.
That sounds like any right-wing member of Congress right now. That is exactly the kind of thing, that is exactly the kind of statements that get you called a conspiracy theorist, an election denier, a election fraudster, promoter of the big lie, right? These were the exact statements that President Trump made when this happened to him. And we have it on tape. We're going to get into what Tulsi Gabbard released yesterday, because we know, as a matter of fact, there's going to be a lot more coming. But here we have on tape Joe Biden. Everyone always attacked us for taking Joe Biden out of context. So I beg of you, for the first time in the history of this program, to just simply listen to the words that Joe Biden is saying and internalize them. Here we go.
We have put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
So if you are to read that back, it's Joe Biden saying, we put together the most extensive voter fraud organization in American history. And it helped Barack win, and it's going to help me win. Kamala Harris wasn't talking about paper ballots in that election, I assure you, because she was on the ticket. Kamala Harris was perfectly happy to have elections that were run like this. Here's a good example. So this is the system that got Joe Biden into the White House. We can assure you. We can show you the tabulations. You can see, for some reason, 20 million votes were just manufactured out of thin air. Democrats have had effectively the same share of the electoral vote and the electoral college over the past 20 years. It's been almost flatlined, right? If anything, it's been degrading. But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. It's been flatlined. In 2020, suddenly 20 million new Democrat voters appeared out of nowhere. The Republican vote share by totals have been going up pretty steadily. How do you account for the disappearance in 2024 of 20 million Democrat voters? You can't. Makes no sense mathematically, algorithmically. Makes no sense from like a human behavioral standpoint. The only way it makes sense is right here. I'm going to show you the two-step process for how the system was rigged so heavily in favor of Joe Biden using the systems that Kamala Harris was decrying just a few years earlier. This is a Ring doorbell camera. You can play it. Of some woman walking up to a house that isn't hers and swiping the paper ballots out of the mailbox. We played it on the show before. There are thousands of examples of this across the country. But you mail the paper ballot to the individual. It sits there in the mailbox in an unsecure location, and they can just be harvested by somebody who doesn't, like, who knows who that is? Nobody knows. There's been no arrest. This is in Massachusetts, but there are cases like this in every state in America. Then what happens next? That lady tries to vote. And the person at the voter registration courthouse says, "Oh, I'm sorry, you already voted." We have that exchange actually on camera. Here you go.
Second report filed was from this Lawrence woman who's still waiting for elections officials to decide whether her in-person vote will count or the mail-in, which she says has her signature forged.
How come it's not going to be counted if I'm voting right in front of you and I'm telling you that that vote that you have there is not mine?
State elections officials are now sorting through these allegations and were told the results would be delivered before the candidates begin their new terms in January.
We're on it. The minute we heard about it today, we took action. We've had a history of sending people to jail when they've committed crimes. And that's what we'll do here.
Okay, got it. So I've heard the left screech and scream about black women, particularly disenfranchisement, but black people disenfranchisement. Black people can't get voter IDs. Black people aren't able to vote. They're not capable of getting an ID. The argument that the left makes is that black people can't get ID. Voter ID is racist because black people can't get IDs. You hear that nonstop. Every single voter law that gets put into place, it's a constant scream of voter disenfranchisement. And yet that black woman who's sitting there saying, they stole my vote, and then they forged my signature, and then they voted for me. This like clear-cut case of a black woman being disenfranchised. Nothing. No marches. No Democrats on TV talking about her. Nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of disenfranchisement, Wanda the Stuffer, to show you this at scale, you can see, of course, the woman in Connecticut named Wanda, who's been made famous. She's now facing 91 counts of election fraud, famous for taking a trash bag full of stolen votes and stuffing them into a drop box on camera. Here's her fate.
Wanda's been arrested. The Democrat operative who was caught on camera allegedly stuffing ballots in Bridgeport, Connecticut last year was charged with unlawfully possessing another person's ballot and witness tampering. But this has nothing to do with her alleged stuffing in 2023. This goes all the way back to 2019. Wanda was arrested for ballot fraud in the city's 2019 Democrat primary for the same candidate she helped elect in 2023, Mayor Joe Ganim. Wanda's accused of filling out someone's absentee ballot, telling them to not vote in person, and then asking them to not tell investigators about what she said. Wanda isn't the only Democrat arrested for fraud. 3 other Bridgeport Democrats were charged. One of them's a city councilman. Wanda's been suspended with pay from her city job for months. She works for the front desk for the mayor that she got into office.
You have to you either laugh or cry at these things. So they're rigging elections. The people who are rigging the elections work for the candidates that are having the elections rigged in their favor. And this goes all the way up to the presidency. This goes all the way up to Joe Biden. Joe Biden not legitimately elected as president. There's just too much information. There's too much mass fraud. And it doesn't matter if there's one single count of fraud, and there are lots of counts of fraud. You can go here to the election fraud counter. It's called electionfraud.heritage.org. This is the election fraud cases all throughout the country. You can see here that there are thousands of election fraud cases, criminal cases, in every single state in America. Some states have 2 or 3. Some states have hundreds, like Minnesota, where you don't need voter ID, and where there are massive cell block housing of Somalians in Minneapolis that sell their votes. How can I say that with certitude? Well, it's on camera from James O'Keefe. Somehow that investigation didn't go anywhere. Something for, I don't know, the DOJ to look into. I would really, really like more of this. It's so ubiquitous, in fact, election fraud in this country, that CNN can just randomly, by accident, catch the ballot stuffing happening. A glorious clip from the 2020 election in the must-win swing state of Ohio. Here we go.
The only ballot drop box in Cuyahoga County, Ohio. You can see this woman right here casting her vote. Did you vote for Reagan or Jimmy Carter? Carter. Carter, okay. We don't want to get too personal with people here, but you can see there's actually a traffic jam. We can come around this way and you can see there are cars.
Oh, look, the lady in the minivan with the bag of ballots, the Wanda the Stuffer of Ohio, with the literal physical giant bag of ballots, who's shoving that, she's wearing a mask, she's shoving them into the drop box live on camera. We've, of course, checked the Ohio State Constitution. You're not allowed to handle anyone else's ballot. You're not allowed to vote for anyone else. That's illegal. You're not allowed to even deliver the ballot in Ohio. But here we have this lady shoving the votes into the drop box. Okay. I think we've made our point. There are fraudulent techniques to rig elections that are happening all across the country and are leading to massive criminal charges. Now, these charges are on a state level. I'd really like to see them on a larger federal level, but I guess we'll wait and see. What happened this past week was that President Trump decided to sign an election security executive order, which is my favorite executive order of his presidency. The reason why is that as a Republican, we're used to losing, okay? Most of the time, unfortunately, Trump is not the norm. Maybe moving forward, Trump will be the regular style of candidate we will get in this party. I really hope so. However, for the past majority of my life, we've had George Bush's, McCain's, and Romney's. I'm not arguing that Republicans should win all the time. I think those guys were losers. The older I get, the more it's like a absolute bulletproof reality that they are losers. I'm used to losing. And you do get used to losing when you're nominating someone like Mitt Romney or John McCain for president. All I want is not a guaranteed system of winning. I want a guaranteed system where we can see the votes, where you can lose with dignity, where you can understand what went wrong, retool. I want it to be fair. I think that everybody who believes in our republic simply wants the exact same thing that I do. We just want election security, and that's what President Trump delivered in his executive order. Here we go.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order for your attention on the very important subject of election integrity. We believe that this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on and on for a while, sir, but compliance with National Election Day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud, you've heard the term. We'll end it, hopefully. At least this will go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks, and we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of the election, the fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other.
What is it like where you vote? I vote in the state of Florida. The state of Florida has gone that color right there. It used to go very purple or blue. The state of Florida was not a solid red state before they started to implement a couple of very simple things that I think everybody is in favor of. In fact, polling shows that it's a 90-10 issue, voter ID. So first thing that happens when I vote, what happens where you vote? First thing that happens where I vote is I walk in and they go, where's your ID? Don't have an ID, you don't go past go. Don't get past go. All right? You get fined and sent out. Your ID gets taken by some little dude, and that guy's like, let me check you in the system. Checks my face, checks my address, checks my records, sees that I'm registered, and then hands me a ballot. That ballot has a number on it. The ballot is marked. That ballot is then filled out by me physically. I have to go bubble in things. Go to a little cubicle, right? Little box. You have to bubble in things. So I'm physically filling out a ballot. That ballot then gets put into a tabulator. I get a receipt with a number, track it. I can go check in on my ballot. I can see that it was counted. I can go see. I can go check it. Right? The tabulator is not connected to the internet. Tabulator is an electronic tabulator, but has no Wi-Fi or anything like that. The electronic tabulation is to count the votes quickly. The faster you count the votes, the less time there is for fraud. The longer you have, the longer there is for water pipes to burst or for giant ballot drop boxes and so on. That's why Florida gets their election results in 9 p.m. sharp. You know exactly who won the state and by how much. Here's the voter ID option. It's a 90-10 issue. Why this is not part of every single budget resolution and every single act of Congress from a Republican Congress, I don't know. I don't get it. It's the most popular issue in the entire country. States that didn't have voter ID. Let's go ahead and check in. Oh, okay. Every state with no voter ID went blue. Every state with voter ID went red. Got it? Simple, easy. Kamala Harris could understand it. This is why Joe Biden says that they've created the most sophisticated, broad, and diverse voter fraud operation in American history. That's how it works. President Trump signing that executive order saying paper ballots does something very important, and voter ID, it cracks down on this. Now they're facing challenges in the Supreme Court, saying the federal government can't crack down on the states' rights to run their own election. That's going to be litigated inside of the court systems. But Donald Trump's executive orders state something and draw a line in the sand. Also, these ballot measures that go for voter ID, like in Wisconsin just a couple of weeks ago, they pass resoundingly. The Wisconsin ballot measure was a massive winner. In huge number. It was a 60-30 victory in Wisconsin for voter ID. So a winning issue across the country and something that would mitigate what Tulsi Gabbard talked about yesterday. Now, this is the bombshell clip that went thermonuclear viral of Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, who's been tasked with looking into voter fraud. She oversees CISA, the electronic vote monitoring system here in this country. And she said that they have discovered something horrific. They've, in fact, discovered that there was vote switching. They've discovered, in Tulsi Gabbard's investigation, that the electronic voting machines that have been used across the country are not only easily able to be hacked, but have been hacked. Like, how fake is your country, right? How fake have our elections been for the last 20 or so years? The important part about having a physical copy of the vote is that it's just like a crime. There's physical evidence. It's easy to go back and see who did what. If it's simply a digital touch of a screen, all of it can be manipulated. And we're going to show you how that's already been happening across the country. Mark my words, this is one of the opportunities that the left has to regroup and figure out how do we possibly funnel in thousands, if not millions of new votes into our next candidate in 2028. And they're doing that process right now. And Donald Trump's team, that is the number one existential threat to the Trump administration. There is no greater threat. That coupled with what we learned this week from Doge, that there are millions of criminal aliens that have been added to our voter rolls. Is that what Donald Trump is talking about with the horrific findings? We're not sure, but we know that there, during the Biden administration, about 4 million criminal aliens were added to the Social Security system, which allows them to sign up for a voter card, which allows them in virtually every state to vote. So that's Joe Biden off the top, adding 4 million votes to Democrats. Because if you're a criminal alien subsistent on open borders, you're going to have complete fealty to the Democrat Party. Anyway, Tulsi Gabbard yesterday dropping this bombshell, and it's very important, and it's how we keep our country. Here we go.
I've got a long list of things that we're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections.
So let's go ahead and read the news on this. In a jaw-dropping moment from the high-level cabinet meeting on Wednesday, United States Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard dropped a bombshell. There is now direct evidence that electronic voting machines have tampered with and manipulated the outcomes of U.S. elections and switched votes. Gabbard gave a detailed update on a sweeping investigation into the politicization of the intelligence and election interference. Her statement confirmed that many conservatives have long suspected the very foundations of American electoral systems have been compromised. I've got a long list of things that we're investigating. We have the best going after this, election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how the electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time, vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of votes being cast, which further drives forward the mandate about paper ballots across the country. Voters can have faith in the integrity of our outcomes. I am not looking for elections where Republicans win every single time. That is what Democrats are looking for. Democrats are looking on the margins to algorithmically ensure victory every single election. And you've seen this in so many of the, you've seen this in the results. Like when the, man, you can pull up some of the creepy results like from Wisconsin. This is why voter integrity was so important in Wisconsin. With the Senate race in Wisconsin, you had the exact same thing that happened in 2020, where you have the clear parabolic trajectories of the Democrat candidate and the Republican candidate, and then this just absolute spike right at 2 a.m. for the Democrat that just ever so slightly needles out the Republican. Just enough. Because that's what this system is all about. Getting just enough ballots, or not votes, ballots over the finish line. That's what they want. I don't want that. It's rigged. It's immoral. It's offensive. I just want a system that we can all trust what's happening. And the way that you trust it is show me the evidence. What's been my big problem, right? With like everything from Epstein to some of the like high level firings is like, you got to show us the evidence. And if you can't see the evidence, then you, based on the last 20 years of experience from Iraqi WMDs and on, you have to assume that they're lying to you. So what Tulsi's talking about too, by the way, ballot switching is something that's happened across the country. There are illegal votes that have been switched in Pennsylvania. Alex, you're going to have to send the actual article here. I don't know which one it is, but please put up the article of the Pennsylvania county. in this past election, there's a lot of examples of this, but this past election where the ballots on electronic voting machine switched so steadily for one candidate that candidate won. So the votes were cast completely electronically. There was no physical evidence of the votes. And they used the touchscreens. And the touchscreens would flip the votes. This was for a Supreme Court seat in the state of Pennsylvania. The person with the least amount of votes won because a electronic machine swapped all the votes. This was covered extensively. They had to go through and litigate all of it. And it was a massive failure for the system. Here we go. Pennsylvania County promises accurate tally after clerical error. Flips votes for judges. Not just flipping votes, it flipped the entire race. You'll go through and you'll see that the machine changed the vote. Who did it? Who did that? What these are called are trial runs. There's plenty of examples of how easy it is to hack these machines. Let's hop to one here, for instance. How easy would it be to hack a electronic voting machine? Go.
All I have to do, this bad actor, would be to open up this machine by pressing this button right here. When it's off, removing the card reader, removing this, you don't need any tools to do this. Unplugging this, again, you don't need any tools to do this. Turning it on, all you have to do is pick this lock here with a ballpoint pen. Open this up, press the red button, and we're gonna let it boot up here. Just click cancel and OK. And now I have full admin access, under 2 minutes.
So some dorky lady at a conference can just hack one of our secure election machines. This happened in the state of Colorado, where all of the key codes for all of their electronic voting machines were just left available on the Secretary of State's website. Why did that happen? They knew about it, Secretary of State, and they didn't shut it down. They didn't even announce it. At what point can you just begin to say that there is not only a mass system of fraud throughout the country, but a mass criminal enterprise dead set on rigging our elections for the rest of our lives? It must be shut down. I mean, I think that this is the greatest threat to the nation. Actually outside of even what's happening inside of intel agencies, and they're all connected. But you must shut down the fraud. You must make our elections fraud-proof. How easy is it to switch votes in a machine? There are demonstrations. There are demonstrations all across the internet for this. Mike Lindell obviously got a great ruling from a judge on this exact issue. Do we have that, please? If we don't, you got to pull it up. Thank you. Just a shout out to Mike Lindell, who we know and love. Mike Lindell's been through it. Boy, is he right on this issue. Mike Lindell, who effectively had his entire life atomized for saying that these electronic voting machines were fraudulent and were able to be hacked, won in a historic ruling where a judge said that the electronic voting machines that Mike Lindell was raging against, that it's true that they can be hacked, that they can be switched, and more importantly, that it robs Americans of their constitutional rights. The judge's ruling says that electronic voting machines are unconstitutional here in this Georgia court case. At what point do we bring this all the way up to the Supreme Court? How easy is it to hack the machines? Let's go.
All cybersecurity experts who have given electronic voting machines any thought agree. These machines have got to go. To show you why, I'm running a mock election using the same dangerous and obsolete machine still in use today. Our election will find out whether Michigan students prefer their own university or our arch rival, Ohio State. After the chaos of the 2000 election, we were promised a modern and dependable way to vote. I'm here to tell you that the electronic voting machines Americans got to solve the problem of voting integrity, they turned out to be an awful idea.
One vote for McCain.
That's because people like me can hack them all too easily. I'm a computer scientist who has hacked a lot of electronic voting machines. I even turned one machine into a video game console. Imagine what the Russians and North Koreans can do. I've even gone to Congress to raise the alarm. Our highly computerized election infrastructure is vulnerable to sabotage and even to cyber attacks that could change votes. This is the same electronic voting machine used in Georgia and parts of Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas, and even in swing states like Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania. Millions of Americans voted on paperless electronic voting machines in the 2016 election.
Who are you going to vote for?
100% Michigan.
100% Michigan. Obviously Michigan.
Michigan. Michigan.
But here's a little secret between you and me. I've already hacked these worthless machines. Step 1. Buy a voting machine on eBay. Or, if you're the North Koreans, hack the manufacturer and steal their software code. Step 2. Write a virus. Step 3. Email your virus to every election official responsible for programming the voting machines with new ballots. Many of these officials are easy to find online. Step 4. Sip coffee and wait. Step 5. Hijack the ballot programming and let the election officials copy your invisible malicious code onto the voting machines. Step 6. Watch your code silently steal votes.
So this dude at the University of Michigan, and if you know anything about college sports, you'll know that the University of Michigan hates Ohio State very much, was able to hack what was probably a 99-1 vote total, Ohio State versus Michigan, on the campus of University of Michigan to show that Ohio State wins. That's how easy it is. Tulsi Gabbard saying, we need to end these machines here in America. Ooh, it would be very, very nice to see that. Also, very quickly here, before we get to our first guest, which I'd really like to talk about this topic with, newly declassified FBI memos detail concerns payments to Russia collusion informant. Turns out that the findings of the Durham report, which are right here, finding of the Durham report. Let's go ahead and read it. Indeed, based on the evidence gathered at multiple exhaustive and costly federal investigations, these matters, including the instant investigation, neither the U.S. law enforcement or intelligence committee appears to have possessed any actual evidence of collusion in their holdings at the commencement of Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Here we go. The Durham report is like 4,000 pages long. But this is the most important page. There was never any evidence. Never. None of it. The state of the intelligence community informant regarding Trump and Russia prior to the opening of Crossfire Hurricane. Zero evidence. They had no predicate to open this investigation. Now we find out that they were, and who knows, maybe are currently, still forking over millions of dollars, and by the they, I mean the FBI, millions of dollars to Russians and Russian informants in order to get dirt on Trump. This is how dirty the operation was. Now, there's an entire trove of documents that are being currently released right now by the FBI on this. Our sources at the FBI tell us that to stay tuned. There's a lot more to come. But Stefan Harper getting millions of dollars from the FBI in order to create lies about Donald Trump is step number 1. Here we go.
They are the documents that President Trump first declassified in January 2021. Then the FBI scooped them up and kept them from the American public. And then the president re-declassified them a second time a few weeks ago. And Kash Patel was the first FBI director to make good on President Trump's promise, delivered them to the House Judiciary Committee. We got a set. Everybody in the country can now look at it. We've posted every document on justthenews.com. People can download and read. There are all sorts of stories and leads in these documents. The first one we're focused on is Stefan Halper, the other informant, not Christopher Steele, but the guy that wore the wires and was helping the FBI try to find out if there was a Russia collusion problem inside Trump world. What did we learn about him? First, He had a very lucrative career as a snitch. $1.2 million since 1991 to 2017 he got from the FBI as a confidential human source, according to these documents. These are official government documents. Secondly, very early on in the investigation, he provided one of the most explosive allegations of Russia collusion. That Mike Flynn, soon to be President Trump's national security advisor, in 2014 left a foreign party by himself with a Russian woman that the FBI thought might be a honeypot or something to that degree. But within a few days, the FBI concluded that story from Stefan Halper wasn't true. They were able to confirm with Mike Flynn's security detail that he didn't leave alone. He didn't even leave with a woman. Despite that fact, they kept paying Stefan Halper. They kept validating him, and they kept using him to continue to investigate the Russia collusion story. You have an informant that has a credibility issue on paper with the FBI. They write in their validation reports, the thing that's supposed to catch problems, he's great, don't worry, no problems with him. They ignore the fact that one of the most important stories, a story they opened up an investigation on Mike Flynn with, was actually a bogus story. They don't mention that, and that's how he keeps going to the end of his tenure as a confidential human informant, and he makes more money.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining me now, Representative Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, the place that has the hackable election system. He's also on oversight and accountability. So we would be able to look over, well, let's see, the Russia collusion hoax and also what happened to General Flynn, friend of the show. Please welcome Scott Perry. Congressman, thank you for being on the program again. We're talking about Tulsi Gabbard. We're talking about the deep state. We're talking about the Russiagate collusion and also the election security in this country. I wanted to start off the top here with the state of Pennsylvania and this case of election switching vote machines. This happened with a Supreme Court case in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if it's your district or not, but this made a lot of news. And Tulsi Gabbard then yesterday comes through and says, as Director of National Intelligence, these electronic voting machines are not secure, and we have evidence of them switching votes and affecting the outcomes of elections. What should happen with electronic voting in the country?
We should get rid of electronic voting in the country. We can count paper ballots. Matter of fact, in Pennsylvania, before electronic voting machines were available, we either did it by paper or we had this old archaic machine that you would wheel in and you would pull these levers and you would pull a big handle and it cast your vote, and everybody knew by 10 o'clock at night who won the race. And that seemed to be obvious and acceptable. But remember, the advent of electronic voting machines really didn't come into force until Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. And there had to be some other explanation other than Donald Trump beat her. So it had to be there were voting irregularities. And now all we have is voting irregularities where you have decremented votes, you have partial votes. We can't find out from California for 2 or 3 or weeks or a month who won the election. It is absurd. We're the only westernized country that does this stuff. And we all know that we could vote with our identification on one day unless you needed an absentee ballot that you requested and go back to safe, secure elections that people actually trusted.
Is there any proposition to change the way that Pennsylvania votes? I mean, is there anything that is on the table right now? This is obviously something that's got to be near and dear to you.
Well, yeah, of course. As one of the people that was derided for even suggesting on behalf of my constituents that anything untoward happened in any of these elections. But look, I'm in Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro is our governor. And guess who profits from questionable voting in Pennsylvania? Keep in mind, Josh Shapiro won his race for Attorney General there were 3 row officers in Pennsylvania during the Trump election. Josh Shapiro won. The 2 other Republican candidates, almost virtually unknown, beat Democratic incumbents during the same election, but somehow Josh Shapiro won, and President Trump, who went to bed that night thinking he had won, got up in the morning and had lost. So I don't suspect there's going to be any change in Pennsylvania because Josh Shapiro likes things just the way they are.
Do you think that there should be prosecutions for election fraud if uncovered in 2020? I think that this is something that a lot of the American public hasn't gotten over, that somehow 20 million Democrat voters that voted in 2020 just disappeared in the election before and after, and that just
Right.
seems a little too on the nose for us.
Yeah, and of course the people with the drop boxes and being able to track the location of the mules with their cell phones, none of that's the FBI has that information, never investigated it, never went further. I'm listening to the case that you're making regarding Crossfire Hurricane, and me and every other American that's watching you right now, Benny, is wondering the same thing. When is someone going to jail?
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because, again, we go back to the Durham report here. The Durham report just says there was never any predicate to ever open this investigation. So anybody who ever worked on this is clearly breaking the law because they're just seeking out a totally and completely prejudiced case against President Trump. There was never any evidence, never any direct evidence, and they were paying a fortune to some of the shadiest and dirtiest people that were actual Russian agents, in order to try and get evidence. They ended up getting the PP dossier. I mean, isn't that prima facie criminal? Isn't that like on its, like, again, yeah, where are the arrests?
Of course it's prima facie criminal. Look, this is actually worse than the Soviet Union, where it is often said, you show me the person and I'll show you the crime. In this case, you show me the person and we'll manufacture the crime. We, the government, will manufacture the crime. Whoever was manufacturing deserves to be in trial in criminal court right now.
Yeah. So you're on the Oversight and Accountability Committee. You have quite a buffet before you of corruption from the federal government. Is there any motion here on Crossfire Hurricane? Can we expect anything on this front? Obviously, these are damning documents, but it seems like there's sort of been a fire hydrant of federal corruption that's being exposed. And I don't want to lose this, because what they ended up doing is it's almost like rigging an election against Trump. Trump won in 2016, but they rigged his entire administration away from him, right? He was kneecapped by this.
Right. Yeah.
And if you speak to anybody.
Yeah, he was unable to realize his full potential as president as a result of these nefarious efforts. And I think as time goes on and more of this information comes out, look, like you said, we have a smorgasbord of riches. We have the blessing of riches of horrible things, unfortunately. But I think that Chairman Comer, as more and more of this information comes out, we're going to have to take a stronger look at it. Now, we also want to coordinate with the Department of Justice because of this blessing of riches of nefarious activity. You know, we only have so much bandwidth, each one of us. And if they're doing it, maybe we don't need to, or maybe we need to buttress them with testimony that they otherwise aren't getting or something like that. But I think we need to coordinate so that we hit all these nefarious activities and provide the best and greatest volume of transparency and accountability for the American people.
Yeah. Where would you like to see that start, given that you're a powerful member of the Oversight and Accountability? Where would you like to start? I mean, what's a passion project for you to go after? Obviously we've been sort of making the point that if you don't have secure elections in this country, you have nothing, and you can't have a functional republic without them.
Yeah, I think this is one of the highest profile things that either the Department of Justice or the oversight committees in the House and Senate need to take on, because elections are how we resolve our disputes and disagreements in America. And if you can't believe in them, if you can't trust them, and it's one thing if the Russians, the Chinese, or the North Koreans or Iranians are trying to manipulate them. It's wholly another thing when our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement agencies are involved. So I think that's top tier. But I don't want to stop there. Look, I think we've got to look at a lot of things like the J6 operation and what the federal involvement was. We need to look at the pipe bomber incident there, where it sure appears that the federal government or some federal agencies know who the pipe bomber was, but don't want to let us know. I mean, and quite honestly, I think we do have to go back and look more deeply into Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, security risk and being captured by the Communist Party of China and what those security risks were. So, look, we've got a full plate. We could also be looking into what the federal government knows about UAP and the origins of COVID, what the security risks there. I mean, a lot of this stuff is classified, and the American people need to be able to see it so that they know whether they can trust their government or not, and who knew what when and whether they said about it.
That's very interesting, a point that you just brought up. And if you don't mind me going back, because you piqued my interest here. One, you said we need to look into potential intelligence operations from within, not from without, for election rigging. This sort of corresponds with the head of CISA, who was fired and now is being called to be federally investigated, who claimed that 2020 was the most secure election in American history. As this guy, it just got an executive order signed against him, Donald Trump demanding his investigation. Is that your suspicion? Do you have evidence that the hacking of the 2020 election may have been coming from inside of the House, inside our intel agencies?
Well, I don't have any evidence, and I don't want to pretend that I do here. But in the way I've seen everything come and shake out from that election, there has never been a full investigation. There have never been full court proceedings. Most of the court action was thrown out before it even any. There was never, as far as I know, any evidentiary consideration of the evidence itself. So I think we need to know for sure what CISA, what the intelligence agencies knew about it, if anything, what they were saying about it, what foreign actors were doing or not doing, or what's being ascribed to foreign activities. Yeah, we absolutely need to know all of that. And now is absolutely the time, with President Trump in office, Ratcliffe over at CIA, Patel and Bondi over at the FBI and Justice. Yeah, we need to get to the bottom of all of it and know what they did in the past, what those agencies did in the past.
Congressman, one final point that you just brought up in your explanation of what you want to investigate is the J6 pipe bomber, saying that you just have to assume that the feds know who the pipe bomber is and that they're hiding it from you. Now, why the hell would that be?
Well, it seems like the feds have we've seen the tapes with the frame rate changed. We've seen the tapes with the face blurred out. Like, some of us have seen that stuff. Why would that be the case? Why would frame rate change? Why would the cell phone data for that specific place and location be lost? The phone companies have this data, and there's more than one phone company. Like, it's just all too coincidental. And look, it's no different really than the Jeffrey Epstein case. We don't believe that Jeffrey Epstein hung himself. He had broken bones in his neck, and that's not how you get broken bones in a prison, where suddenly the cameras were turned off and the guards, went for a sandwich break. Like, nobody believes this stuff, right? None of us believe it.
So you bring up really great points here. We should do a show together, because I think we agree on a lot of these things. So yeah, just too many coincidences. All right, just real fast follow-ups here. What does it say if the feds are hiding the identity and protecting the one guy who was a terrorist on January 6th? What does that say?
Well,
because I agree with you, Congressman. There is one terrorist who deserves terrorism charges on January 6th. It's the pipe bomber. Okay? Right. The so-called pipe bomber.
Yeah, and if that was an operation sanctioned, carried out by any of the federal agencies, clandestine or otherwise, obviously that's going to have to be rooted out. Root and branch going to have to be torn out, but somebody is going to have to be held accountable, because I can't imagine that whether it was an op or not, that some wayward agent just took it upon him or herself to do that of their own accord. Somebody issued those orders, and the American people need to know who that is, and then there needs to be accountability for that. And then if there has been a cover-up, we need to know who's been operating that cover-up as well.
Man. So much, it's so dirty, it's so filthy. You brought up Epstein, which is sort of the magic word, right, to get people very upset online. Final question for you: what's your game theory? This for us, sources that we have at the FBI telling us that they have a large amount of evidence that hasn't been released to the public, and that they're doing their best to try and go through it and release it. What's your take on this entire saga? Because it does seem like there is a opportunity for people to lose faith, right? That they're getting full transparency. And more importantly, what is constantly being asked by our show is, why would you protect pederasts? That doesn't make any sense. If there's one people to let them burn in hell, it's the pederasts, right? Out with it, right? And then handcuffs for the people that were involved. But
Yeah,
Here we
I don't
are.
think I don't think anybody is doing their best to quickly get the information completely out. I think everybody's doing their best to make sure the information isn't out. And look, maybe there are national security implications. And as a guy who's worked in that arena a little bit, I certainly can understand that. Then tell the American people what was so important, what was so sensitive that it was worth keeping a pedophile and a pedophile operation on the books for years at end, allowing the abuse of minors around the globe to be involved. Tell us what was so important to protect. Was it nuclear war with some country? Like, was it chemical warfare inside? What was it that we are now protecting? Look, we could be understanding if the risk was worth the cost. I say that kind of tongue in cheek because these are children, and I really can't be understanding. But at least try. At least try to make it. To work the equation out for the American people.
Yeah, we've done extensive research on this program. We've put up the FBI documents saying Epstein's intel. He works for us. Let him off the hook when they had him in a clear-cut case in Palm Beach.
Right.
Like, you do owe us an explanation.
Yeah.
Like, why did you allow this operation to continue? They owe us the explanation. That doesn't make any sense. Well, we thank you for it's a breath of fresh air. It's why you got to follow Scott Perry. It's a breath of fresh air. Like, have you ever heard a member of Congress speak like this? Like, who just like comes out and just kind of says it with both barrels? This is like Pennsylvania wrestler stock here, man. I know it. Pennsylvania hunting and wrestler stock. I know it when I see it. Am I right, sir? Yeah.
Wrestling capital of the world, right here, Pennsylvania. You got it.
That's right. Pennsylvania hunters and wrestlers. They are built different, and they don't got any time for bullshit. And we thank you so very much, Congressman, for your clarity on this. We hope that if you find anything, that you'll come back as soon as possible. You always have a warm audience here to listen. And thank you, sir. 141,000 followers on X. You are ticking up, Congressman. Ooh, baby.
Thanks for the help. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Go in there and follow. Go in there and follow our friend, Congressman.
God bless you. Appreciate you having me on.
God bless you. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Great. We have joining us next is going to be somebody who's making a ton of news right now in an arena that we care a lot about, which is culture. So I am very excited that momentarily we'll be joined by a man who is destroying Disney with his bare hands. so stay tuned. Something that is quite alarming and that also has to do with quite frankly, putting children at threat. Talking about Epstein there, we're now going to move on over to this horrible crash that happened in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was on the mind. New York. It's this. It's the top of the news cycle. It's the top trend everywhere, and so we wanted to cover it on the show. Talk about something that is disturbing, that kind of ties into the conversation that's already rolling here, which is transparency. So 6 were killed in a helicopter crash yesterday. No explanation as to what the hell happened. I will play the footage here. You can just see that the entire helicopter atomizes. I'm not trying to go crazy and say that like maybe this is just mechanical failure. There are mechanical failures. There's a plane down in Boca Raton at time of show. I mean, this is another crash that just happened right when we went live this morning. But this is starting to happen quite a bit. And if we do anything on this program, it's recognizing patterns. And we're starting to recognize that there's a clear pattern of some major either mechanical or human difficulties in flight. Here's the bone-chilling photo of the family that perished in the helicopter crash. But what was going on here? Well, they were taking a tourist helicopter tour of Manhattan Island. The helicopter was doing the standard route around the island itself, and then the helicopter just atomizes. And you can see the propellers flies right off. What exactly is going on here? It's kind of hard to see in this clip. Can we grab maybe one or two more crash clips? I think there are others. But either way, you're seeing things sort of like, the gears sort of not moving in symphony with each other across various infrastructure levels on the United States. And it sucks. And it's something that, one, you want to be able to know that you'll be safe with your children when you're in the skies. A lot of people travel by air. And then two, we won't forget what happened in Washington, D.C. Now, what happened in D.C. yesterday was that there was two planes smashed into each other on the runway, thankfully. But what happened in Washington, D.C. just 2 months ago, where we have never received an answer. We have received no intel on this, no information on a plane smashing into. Go to the next clip, please. Here we go. A Army Black Hawk helicopter slicing through, it's the most horrific death imaginable, the rotors of the plane slicing through a commercial aircraft. You can imagine what that does to the people inside. Who were inside this aircraft? Well, in a heartbeat, 70 people died, men, women, and children, U.S. Olympians, Chinese nationals, Russian nationals, could have started a massive international incident. We have received zero information as to what happened here. We don't know. Who was to blame? They concealed the identity of the Black Hawk helicopter pilot. This Black Hawk helicopter pilot was a Joe Biden staffer at the White House. She was a female pilot. Did she pass her pilot's test? Was she promoted upwardly through DEI initiatives to get more female pilots? What happened here? Why did they hide her identity? There were also 2 male pilots with her. Did nobody try and help? Did nobody stop what was about to happen? Helicopters are designed for battlefields where you can get an RPG shot at you or Stinger missile launched at you at any moment. These helicopters can stop on a dime. These helicopters can navigate very easily through the skies. You'll notice here in this clip that there's never the tail of the helicopter doesn't move, meaning they never once tried to even go up or down or around the massive, shining like a fireball in front of them, then soon was a fireball, commercial airliner. Commercial airliners have lights like every 3 feet. They burn in the sky so that everyone can see where they are. What's going on here? Why has nobody explained what the hell happened? We don't have the recordings from the cockpit. We don't have any official Pentagon explanation. There's 70 people dead at our nation's capital. This airport that they're flying into is where children on tour groups fly into. Klein and I have flown in DCA like 5 times this year. You've probably flown in this airport a bunch of times. This is where heads of state, members of Congress, I mean, on the crash yesterday, you have members of Congress that were on the planes that smashed into each other. Now, nobody was hurt. There are, photos like this online. This is a member of Congress posting, hey, like my plane just hit another plane. They were taxiing and they collided. But that collision could easily be in the air. We're just doing our best to ensure that this country is safe and that they can't plan some horrible event that, of course, is going to be a massive black eye for our president. And obviously would lead to wanton death of innocent people. So I want transparency here, and the only way to prevent this from happening again is for our officials to be honest with us about what happened. Let's go ahead and look here about maybe what happened in New York, all right? Some people saying maybe there was a drone, maybe this was a drone attack. Somebody flew a drone up there towards the helicopter, was trying to create a terroristic event, to scare people. You could fly a drone into the helicopter. Okay. You could plant a bomb on the helicopter. I saw a lot of speculation. Let's go here. Mast bumping due to low G push over low G maneuver, most likely unintentional, happens with helicopters with 2 blades because the semi-rigid rotor system works on a teetering hinge that seesaws up and down with every revolution to increase lift. And a low G maneuver the tail becomes higher than the fuselage, and the blades will literally cut the tail off of your helicopter. Now, this describes what happened in New York. The eyewitnesses say there was a massive boom, as though like metal hit metal, and then the helicopter broke in two, and that shows perfectly described here. If you can see, the tail was already gone in the video long before it made impact. Fell like a stone, unrecoverable, and a fatality rate of nearly 100%. There's video of how it looks when it happens. 100% pilot error. 95% of the aircraft crashes are. So this is this seems like a very logical explanation for what may have happened yesterday. Again, this is the top trend all around the country, and a total tragedy. But pilot error here seems to be what's at fault. This does explain, so you can see the animation, and then you can watch the actual video here, and you can see how they correspond. It's just a perfect one-to-one. This seems like a very logical explanation for it. Again, a terrible tragedy. Now there's calls to stop helicopter routes around Manhattan. President Trump banned all Army helicopters from flying over D.C., thank God. But now we need the information. Be honest. Here's what President Trump said about his beloved New York and this Hudson River crash. Terrible Hudson River crash. Terrible helicopter crash in the Hudson River. It looks like 6 people, pilots and adults, 3 children, no longer with us. The footage of the accident is horrendous. God bless the families and the friends. The victims, Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, his talented staff are on it. Announcements exactly what took place and how will be made very shortly. At the very least, the Trump administration in both of these crashes have responded very muscularly right up front with some honesty and truth. But now we need on the back end follow-ups for evidence of what actually happened. The Black Hawk helicopter crash, man, we will not forget it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a moment in all of our lives that we won't forget. And that's the moment when we saw the trailer for the woke Disney Snow White. And we said, what the hell's going on here? Rachel Ziegler's the fairest of them all? No, I don't think so. And everybody said, this movie's going to lose $1 billion. And it went on to lose, well, $1 billion. Disney's Snow White was sort of the apex predator, the moment where the top fell off and the total bottom fell in for wokeness in Hollywood. Disney has since decided to halt all productions on live action remakes, to completely scrap animated features, and they're learning a very, very painful lesson. Ladies and gentlemen, luckily for us, we, of course, have led to some of the criticisms of Disney, and we take a lot of pride in that. There is somebody who's fought Disney, though, fist and glove, and is engaging in a battle of culture to create entertainment for children and to provide an alternative, not just the criticism. We do a lot of that. We also try and do our own, create our own alternative vector of culture, but an alternative to Disney in the sense that they're creating animated feature films that directly compete with Disney. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeffrey Harmon, the COO of Angel Studios, joins us now to talk about their new massive success, soon to be released, King of Kings. Let's go. Jeffrey, thank you for being on the program again. It's an honor to have you back.
Good morning, buddy.
You're making some news right now and breaking some Hollywood box office records. The movie hasn't even been released yet, King of Kings. But early this morning, we saw some pre-sale numbers.
Yeah. We've already pre-sold over $14.6 million. That was in Deadline this morning or late last night. And that puts us, that Deadline saying we're poised to beat Prince of Egypt's record for the biggest animated biblical opening record. And that's a big deal. This movie is like Passion of the Christ for kids. And, you know, everybody remembers when Passion of the Christ came out, but if you were a kid, you probably didn't get to go watch it.
That's right. It's not right. It's not legal actually to take a kid to an R-rated movie, right? Okay.
Yeah. And so if you're a kid, you didn't get to watch it. And this one is for kids. This movie, like we're seeing last night in the what they call the previews, there was some show, just a couple show times last night for people who want to go early. And in those previews, we were seeing so many kids show up, just a few adults, just piles of kids in these theaters. And we're seeing kids come away with tears in their eyes, crying. For the first time, they're understanding the story of the New Testament in this one movie. And it's just in time for Holy Week. Palm Sunday is this Sunday. And so we're watching this take off. Now, that 14.6, a lot of that actually goes into Holy Week, those ticket sales. But so it's a very unpredictable way, like it's unpredictable box office. But looks like it's gonna set some records.
So Snow White, we looked this up last night because we're very interested in this culture war that you're fighting with Disney. Snow White only sold 5 million in pre-sales.
Yeah.
And you're now triple that, which is, in the budgets of the movies do not even compare. Correct me if I'm wrong. Budget of the Snow White was upwards of 300 million. With marketing, it's probably north of that.
I think it's over 250 million. Yeah.
What did your movie cost?
This movie was in the 20s. So it's 1/10 the cost. This movie. It's made by a South Korean Christian director named Jay. I'm going to avoid slaughtering his real name. I tried it like 5 times this morning. I was like, I'm not gonna. But in English, he's Jay, and he has been working on this, I think, for 8 years on the side. His team, they actually make a whole bunch of animated shows for a lot of different big studios. They do a lot of the back end work for these big studios, and on the side for 8 years, they've been making this movie, King of Kings, as a passion project for themselves. And then we connected with them just late last year, early this year, to say, hey, we can take, because nobody else was wanting to take this into theaters. No major studio was interested in taking this into theaters. And we said, we'll do it. And we'll take it out big. And we're going to do it at Easter. And it doesn't have to be as big as the biggest movies, but to be a success. But this is really starting to take off. This movie is, and because Jay is so experienced in this world, he was able to get an all-star cast for the movie. It has an incredible cast. It's an incredible story, and kids are walking out of this movie emotional, wanting to come back. It is it's a visual masterpiece. Like the walking on the water scene in this movie, mind blowing.
So talk me through, and the ratings and the early ratings you have. Again, not just pre-sales. Are you dominating Disney's Snow White which is sort of a lightning rod for a cultural moment, and that I want to ask you about in just a second, but you're just dominating on all of the review sites. It seems like you are winning this war against Disney, spending pennies on the dollar and telling stories that people are starving for.
Yes. If you look, like critics came in, actually, this started at around 80% on Rotten Tomatoes with critics. And then as soon as it got some headlines, we got a whole bunch of critics coming in saying, if you go read their reviews, that most of the negative reviews are people like, they're not reviewing the movie, they're reviewing religion. And they're saying, I had a bad experience with religion and I hate Jesus. And so I'm going to write a bad review. But there's a few that legitimately don't like it. But my favorite, I think, is the New York Times, where she's just like, I don't know if you've got it there, but it's a top critic from the New York Times. And she said, the whole thing's predictable. There's not a single surprise.
Well, yeah, when you read the Bible, it's
like
not a single surprise. It's
predictable, but well done. I mean, but it's from the difference is it's Mark Twain's story, which wasn't, or not Charles Dickens wrote this story, and it was his only unpublished story for about 65 years after his death, and he just gave it to his kids. And so in the movie, the surprise is that Mark Twain's or Charles Dickens, sorry about that. Charles Dickens is the one telling the story. His character's in it, telling his story to his son. And this was published 65 years after his death. And so it takes Charles Dickens' cat and his son and puts them in the biblical space through imagination of storytelling. And that's super interesting for little kids. They love like the way that I have 6 kids, 13 down to 2 years old. And the way that the whole group of them is just glued with this movie is there's not many movies that do this.
So here's a New York Times article that you just brought up, and I want to contrast this with the 97% audience score that you have on Rotten Tomatoes, which is really impressive, along with a fresh rating of 62, which is also, again, very impressive.
Although that started at 80, and as the headlines hit, you get all the basically the troll critics coming in.
Okay, so talk me through this. Talk me through this headline from the New York Times, Jeffrey, because this is really one for the record. So, King of Kings, a review and remaking of The Christ, and it says Jesus Christ, the story of Jesus through the eyes of Charles Dickens that nobody asked for. Well, you have nearly $20 million in pre-sales, so clearly you're wrong. But please, the floor is yours.
Yeah. I think the only movie it looks like this is going to top the box office, except for Minecraft, which is a monster. But this is going to be. Looks like it looks the way that all the experts are saying. They're saying it's going to beat Warfare. It's going to beat The Amateur. That was not expected. 2 weeks ago, they were putting this entire movie at a $6 to $8 million opening weekend in the projections. And I remember one of the experts from the field called me and was like, "So do you think this is right?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Why don't you think it's right?" And I was like, "Because I think we've already sold more tickets than that." And they don't even know how to predict this. But what I like, there's actually a compliment I think in the New York Times one is it's biblically accurate. And so there's not a surprise. You don't have we didn't change up and say, "Oh, I guess he doesn't get resurrected," or
that's right.
Didn't put a twist in, and yeah.
Jesus becomes a social justice warrior, or has a relationship, or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've seen it all. Yeah, exactly. Jesus Christ Superstar. We've seen it. Yeah. That is a massive compliment, but it's also, and I guess is my final question to you, Jeffrey. Why is it so hard for Hollywood to lock in and understand this? The scriptures are filled with some of the greatest tales of all time, and some of the most remarkable stories. If faithfully adapted, you would make billions because people are starving for these stories to be told in a I would say, I use this term cautiously, modern way, where we can really truly visualize them in the full beauty and technology that we have to bring them all to life, right? And what the hell is wrong with Hollywood keeps pumping out sludge that nobody wants, losing hundreds of millions and billions, making Snow White.
It's super funny. The New York Times is like, nobody asked for a remake of Jesus, and it's like, well, nobody asked for all the remakes that Hollywood's making of these garbage, these junk food stories. Nobody's asking for more fast food. We want good stuff. And the reason why they're not getting it is because there's a system in Hollywood that we call the gatekeeper system. There's a couple dozen people in Hollywood that make all the decisions around all the movies. Those 2 dozen people are in a bubble in LA. They live in their own socio-political world, and they don't understand the rest of the world. They're so detached from the rest of the world. And so what Angel Studios, what we're doing is we're trying to replace this gatekeeper system. This movie was passed by what we call the Angel Guild, which replaces the Hollywood gatekeepers. We have 1 million people who pay every single month to be a part of the guild. And as a member of the guild, you get a vote on every movie that comes into Angel Studios, and you get a vote on every movie goes to theaters. This movie scored a 95 in the Angel Guild. So a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes doesn't surprise us, or 96, it's bouncing back and forth. Doesn't surprise us because we could see it inside of the guild. The Angel Guild had voted on it. So there's 1 million people from 155 countries who watch these movies. They don't know who the cast is. They don't know who the director is. They're just seeing the movie and taking it for what it is, and then they vote on it. And as a guild member, you get a vote on the movies. Nothing gets through. I can't even, as a founder of Angel Studios, I can't even look at a movie unless the guild passes it first. So the Angel Guild votes on it. then they get two movie tickets to every single movie. If you're a premium guild member, you get it's like a movie pass, but for all Angel movies. And then also, if you're a guild member, your guild membership goes to supporting all these filmmakers that are making alternative content, alternative films to the Hollywood system. And they're turning out amazing stuff. You've got The Sound of Freedom. You've got Cabrini. You've got this new one, the King of Kings. You've got Last Rodeo coming out in May. There's one called Sketch that's coming out. That's like almost like Stranger Things had a baby with Inside Out 2, but with a strong moral compass. But there's this. That one's called Sketch. That's coming out in August. We have one called Zero AD coming out in the fall from the same director as Sound of Freedom. But when you're a member of the Angel Guild, you get to pick every single movie and you replace the gatekeeper system. I think when we were first asked about the Angel Guild, when I first brought up the idea, some people were like, nobody's going to want to vote on the movies to come in. They just want to be told what they're going to watch. And in fact, one of our board members was in a meeting with a bunch of Hollywood executives and he was explaining the guild, and somebody said, no, this is literally what he said. We are the gods and we make the decisions about what people want and what culture is going to be set, not the audience. And Angel we're the opposite. We are not the gods and we are just a distributor trying to help filmmakers connect with the audience in a way that gives the audience what they want, which is films that amplify light and help uplift people and change the world.
Yes. Again, we've said it a million times. If they had just faithfully adapted Snow White, that movie, which is the #1 animated movie of all time, adjusted for inflation, made $4 billion adjusted for inflation back in 1937.
Yeah.
They just done that, then they would have had a hit on their hands.
That's right.
But they refused. Right. It's almost like innate. They have to spite history. They have to spit in the face of the audience. They have to rug pull, and they have to gatekeep, and they have to project. They have to use it as a message system. And people are just sick, man. They're sick.
And in many cases, like the race swapping concept is fine in some story cases, but in this one, it's Snow White. Like
skin is white as snow. It's there in the source material. Yeah,
yeah. It's like part of the source, and I think that we're entering into a different phase of entertainment where you're seeing House of David on Amazon. You're seeing this. I mean, people are shocked. This movie is selling out all over. I've seen comments from people in certain areas. They're like, I can't find a ticket until next week.
Yep.
Certain areas where they can't get any tickets. Like if you're in an area that has seats, take advantage of it. But there are over 1,000 theaters sold out. And so we're trying to get more seats. But there's such a drive for this type of a film, especially during Holy Week. This is the perfect movie for Holy Week.
Yes. Very quickly, what's your advice to Hollywood? Like, you are clearly ahead of the curve, but I don't think you want the entire entertainment industry in ashes. I think you understand the value of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's your closing thoughts on this? You've had a number of major hits under your belt at Angel Studios, and now you guys are just rip roaring.
Yeah. So we're looking at what I would say is listen to the audience. The audience knows what's best. Get rid of the gatekeepers. That's going to be hard to do because the whole business model is set up differently, but get rid of the gatekeepers, listen to what people actually want. And when you do that, you create good businesses.
Can you please buy Star Wars? I'm just you just described Kathleen Kennedy. You literally just described Kathleen Kennedy. Please, where do I donate for Angel Studios to buy Star Wars?
Yeah. Think about this. Like if the filmmakers, the craftsmen in Hollywood, what we found, they're not against making great biblical content. If you see Zero AD, look at the cast on this. It's got Sam Worthington from Avatar. It's got Jim Caviezel. It's got Ben Mendelsohn coming out in December, and it's about King Herod trying to kill all the innocent kids. And this is an all-star cast with an all-star talent group, and they want to make great art. And they're more about the art than anything, all the craftsmen. The issue is the gatekeepers in Hollywood. They're the people that are like, walk on set and say, you know what? This is from a director of Game of Thrones, says HBO executive walks on set and says, we need full frontal nudity in this scene. And the director's like, well, that wasn't a plan. And he's like, but we need it. I represent the perverts and we need this in the scene. And they come in and these gatekeepers actually force directors to put in stuff, even the directors that we consider pretty hard, they're forcing them to put in more. And so the idea is pull that back, let the craftsmen make great art, and allow them to make the stuff that the audience wants, which is stuff that, in Angel's case, our community, if you want to be part of the Angel Guild, it's a group of people who believe in amplifying light. So whatever is true, honest, noble, just, authentic, lovely, admirable, and excellent. That is how we define it. It's based on the scripture Philippians 4:8. And that is the mission of Angel. So if you want that type of content, we're your community. But regardless, Hollywood needs to listen to the audience, and then they'll succeed again. This isn't an issue of theaters. The business model for theaters isn't bad. People want to go to theaters. We want to disconnect. It's a great opportunity to go have a communal experience with people. But we just don't want to watch stupid. We don't want to. I mean, you can only eat so much fast food and junk food before you feel sick.
Yes. That's right. I'm not sure what you'd call chicken jockey, but it is what it is, right? At least people are getting a communal experience from Minecraft. Yes. Ain't nobody saw Snow White, right? Even Rachel Ziegler filmed herself humiliatingly in an empty theater watching Snow White.
I'm a huge fan of Jared Hess. He did Napoleon Dynamite. He grew up in Idaho, where we grew up. Jared Hess. So that's the reason why that movie starts out in Idaho and I'm from Idaho. So I'm a huge fan of the director of Minecraft. I'm very happy for them.
We want everybody to go over and go to Angel Studios. We'll link in the description here. You can see where the King of Kings is playing near you. Get your tickets if they are available, and make sure that you support people who believe still in making great art and great stories, and won't ignore the greatest stories ever told, which have existed for thousands of years in the scriptures. Thank you, Jeffrey, for doing this. You're an actual cultural warrior. People follow Jeffrey as well as please follow Angel Studios. Please click there, Angel Studios Inc. As well, because you guys are just, we talk a lot about it, man. It's what we're trying to do in the news space, in the cultural space, but you're doing it at scale, and you're really fighting a David and Goliath story. And man, you got the stones. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Thank you. Culture's upstream from politics.
That's right.
Yeah, come join us with the Angel Guild. Join this huge movement. It's over 1 million people. You can vote on all the movies for Angel Studios.
Link in the description. Thank you, Jeffrey. Godspeed, man. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Benny.
I think you will. See ya.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's always fun to be able to bring a diverse, let's just say, cast of characters to your screens and to the internet, and to be able to talk about some of our larger problems at stake. I mean, you can just flow kind of elegantly through the election fraud stories and the Russiagate stories and the pipe bomber stories and Jeffrey Epstein, and then move on to Snow White and Angel Studios. And why don't we move on to saving the environment, shall we? Right? You got Lee Zeldin, who was not able to join us live, but who was able to join us earlier today for an interview on news that we did on the EPA, a story that we did on the EPA and the empty offices inside of the EPA. He is an administrator inside of the Trump admin, and he's a very powerful one. He has some breaking news for us, ladies and gentlemen, recorded earlier today. Please, Lee Zeldin, the administrator of the EPA, joining us now. Joining us now, the newly viral administrator of the EPA. I'm not sure that's ever been said in any interview. The great Lee Zeldin, who's racked up millions of views on our channel with this exclusive behind-the-scenes tour of a very, very empty EPA. along with a multi-million-dollar EPA museum. It was a blast to be in there. It was very much like the Haunted Mansion, Mr. Administrator. Have things spruced up a little bit at the EPA since?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, since you and I sat down, we've gone through our COVID era return to work. We had multiple dates to get people back in the building here at headquarters and in the regions. And that's actually going really well. It's a pretty wild concept that those who get paid by the taxpayers would be shown up to be productive and collaborative actually in the office. So that's been a big update. That Biden EPA museum that you visited is now closed. And when you and I sat down and I was filling you in on our first round of cuts working with Doge, the cancellation amount then was $60 million. And now we're up to $22 billion worth of grants that have been canceled. Big jump.
Wow. $22 billion. How do you even find $22 billion? It's like, that it's remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, and think about this, the EPA's annual budget is around $10 billion, yet we've so far canceled about $22 billion worth of grants. So what the Inflation Reduction Act did was create this greenhouse gas reduction fund, and the EPA, the Biden EPA, sent the $20 billion out to this outside bank, going through 8 pass-through entities. Many of them were brand new. This is part of that $2 billion that President Trump talks about all the time that went to the Stacey Abrams-linked NGO, which only got $100 in 2023 and then got $2 billion in 2024. The director of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund get kicked $5 billion to his former employer. Self-dealing, conflicts of interest, unqualified recipients, reduced oversight by EPA, canceled. And we're happy to do this on behalf of the taxpayers. And the last point I'll tell you, while I say $10 billion is an annual budget, in 2024, over $60 billion passed through the EPA is obligated and spent. That number this year in 25 is going to go down over 65%.
Wow. You're doing it's a 65% reduction in the amount of money spent?
Yeah, 2024, the last year of Biden, to 2025, the first year of President Trump at the EPA, that amount of obligated and spent will go from over $60 billion to down over 65% year to year. And we're just getting started. We're finding efficiencies all over the place. Real estate consolidation. So when you visited us, we had 5 buildings across 2 square city blocks. We made a decision to pull out of the Reagan building. That was the most expensive rent. 7 floors, $18 million. So we're now going to get out of there, consolidate. That saves $18 million. We're looking at travel. We're looking at staff. Whatever we could do to operate more efficiently. We don't want one more or one less employee than what we need to fulfill our statutory obligations and power the great American comeback. We have really talented people who work here. If you're not showing up to work, if you're not doing a good job, if you're not helping us do our job, you're not making the American public proud, well, then you're not fulfilling your obligation to the American people. So there's a lot of ways to make this agency operate more efficiently. And on top of that, we announced a deregulatory action, which is the largest deregulatory action in the history of the United States of America. And it's just one agency. This isn't the largest deregulatory action of the EPA. This is the largest deregulatory action of the entire federal government ever. And that's just happening at one agency.
Wow. There's an enormous amount to unpack. So the deregulation, what is the process there? Is that just ripping the regulations out of the books? Is there a legal process with that? Is it going to happen at the stroke of a pen?
So what we'll do in 2025, not something that we want to take years, something that we're going to do between now and the end of the year, is go through a process through the Administrative Procedures Act. So we're going to follow the law. I'm not going to be allowed to prejudge outcomes at this stage, even though I might have an idea of where certain things may be heading. We'll go through the process. There'll be public comment. Other agencies are involved in the process. At the end, I sign off final rules, all sorts of different final rules that the Biden administration in 2023 and 2024 were finalizing to strangulate the economy, to get rid of different sources of energy, to get rid of jobs, to make it harder for people to afford to heat their homes, to get rid of choice as far as what type of vehicle they want to drive. We want to empower the American people, the American economy, and we believe it's not a binary choice between protecting the environment and growing the economy. The Trump EPA chooses both. We're all in for that outcome, and we're going to do it all this year. We're not pacing ourselves. We want to get everything done. We want to fix everything in 2025.
Your energy is contagious. It's really exciting to see, and obviously you've been in the president's office multiple times. You're ubiquitous inside of these larger decisions that are being made. You probably had quite a bit to do with this China decision that's happening right now with the tariffs. It just seems like there's no way to compete with China if the country is being strangled internally and suffocated by its own regulations. China is obviously a massive polluter. Nobody wants to live in toxic pollution, but there has to be a middle ground, right? Where we can like start making power here again, and that power can source American innovation. Is this part of the deregulation process?
Yeah, this is about America first. And in this trade battle with China, we need to make sure that we are winning the race to become the artificial intelligence capital of the world. We have to make sure that we are tapping into our own resources smartly, by the way, in a way that's far more environmentally friendly than what you see over in China. So if you care about the environment, we should see more environmental groups supportive of tapping into our own supply. We shouldn't be getting rid of baseload power in favor of an intermittent source like wind, as if that's a substitute for baseload power. So this back and forth with China is one that I think an important lesson for China to know, an important lesson for President Trump's opposition here, for those who want to take him on here at home. Do not underestimate President Trump in a trade war. He is not taking this one move at a time. He's been talking about this for decades. It's not like he woke up one day and was like, hey, we should deal with this trade issue with China. He's been talking about it since I was a kid. He knows what he's doing here. And as we saw with this most recent announcement and the stock market bouncing back in a big way, and all sorts of countries that were coming to the president wanting to not retaliate, but work out a deal, we see that progress already happening within days. Do not underestimate President Trump in dealing with China with this. And he did it during his first administration. We saw great progress until COVID hit. He's picking up right where he left off, and he will not allow China to eat our lunch. He is a hungry man when it comes to this. He's ready to eat China's.
It's wonderful to hear, and you want this for America. You can't have a functional country without power. You can't have a functional country without being able to build things and use our natural resources. China clearly understands that. And for some reason, throughout the entire existence of the EPA since the 1970s, your administration, your department has been used to strangle American innovation and the capacity to compete. And you've seen really disastrous effects to that end on the world stage. So it's wonderful to hear that you're unwinding that. It's got to be critical to President Trump's plan to take on China.
Oh, no doubt. This is not just about our economy. It's not just about national security. It's not just about our environment. These actions are about all of the above. It's doing all of this to make our country stronger. Emissions have been going down over the course of the last couple of decades. American innovation is up. We tap into our own energy supply in a way that is better for the environment than what so many other countries are doing. So I don't understand it when you see these environmental groups out there setting electric vehicles on fire at Tesla plants. By the way, that's not very environmentally friendly. The amount of irony and hypocrisy that we are witnessing before our eyes. This is a moment where you should rally first as an American. You should be rooting for America. Listen, I was in the military. I didn't vote for President Obama, but I was in the military, and he was my commander in chief. He was my president. I disagreed with him on stuff, but I didn't want him to be unsuccessful when he was sworn into office in January of 2009. The rest is history as far as things that happen over the next 8 years. I didn't vote for President Biden. But, as somebody who's a military guy and he was the commander in chief, I wanted him to be successful. Now, I was saying during the campaign in 2020, if Joe Biden's elected president, who's going to be the president? And that was a serious question that no one would answer. And then it played out where people were like, oh yeah, I guess that was a fair question back then. Maybe we should have tried to get an answer for. When President Trump put his hand, on the Bible in January of 2017, I was rooting for his success, not just because I voted for him, but because I love this country. When he was sworn into office a few months ago, less than 100 days, I want him to be so successful on all of these issues and so much more. And it's not about the fact that I support Donald Trump for president. It's that I root for America first. And this is a moment where we should all be rallying. And if you need to look in the mirror, if you're some environmental group or environmentalists who spent yesterday setting an EV on fire, we all need to come together and make sure that we win this. And it's big, long game. What we are doing right now on the economic front nationally, whether it's trade, whether it is energy policy, it is securing our border, having a smarter, more effective foreign policy. This is about making America stronger. Don't root against President Trump's success because you're trying to win an election.
Just really quickly, because you're in charge of a department, you're in charge of an entire agency called the Environmental Protection Agency. So what does it say to you when a left-wing activist uses fossil fuels to light a green energy vehicle on fire? How do you even process that, sir?
From an environmental standpoint, this makes no sense. This is bad for the environment, what they're doing. And we just went through the response to the LA wildfires. President Trump came in, he signed an executive order. He told EPA we have 30 days to complete our hazardous materials, the phase 1 mission in LA before the Army Corps picks up for phase 2 to do their debris removal. Over 13,000 properties. We came in, we got it done in under 30 days. There were all sorts of lithium ion batteries. There was all sorts of hazardous materials to remove. And we got the job done because President Trump set out the order to get it done. How do you come off of what they all around the country just watched coming out of LA, and then you start setting the EVs on fire? And then you want to argue in favor of an electric vehicle mandate, and you're going against Tesla because Elon Musk wants to dedicate all this time to make the government operate more efficiently. The American public see through you, and they see the hypocrisy when you start setting these vehicles on fire. I think that what Elon is doing, what the Doge team is doing, has been a big help for our efforts here at EPA. We would not have been able to cancel as many grants as we've canceled to get to the bottom of what we've gotten the bottom of to operate more efficiently without that partnership. And he shouldn't be punished for it. He should be thanked.
You brought up Stacey Abrams and the, $2 billion that's the Stacey Abrams group got. This just prima facie looks like fraud. Is there an investigation going on? Is there something criminal that happened here, Mr. Administrator?
The Department of Justice and FBI are investigating. Those funds are frozen. The grants have been canceled. This was first alerted to us in December when there was a video that came out of a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were throwing gold bars off the Titanic. The gold bars are tax dollars. Off the Titanic meant that the Biden EPA knew that they were wasting that money. So we committed, when I was going through my confirmation hearing, if confirmed, I was going to make it a top priority to get to the bottom of it. And then we come in and we found the gold bars. We found 20 billion of the gold bars parked at an outside bank. And all sorts of self-dealing and conflicts of interest where former Biden and Obama political appointees and Democratic donors and others were getting the funds. The money was going through these 8 pass-throughs, in many respects going through other pass-throughs. The EPA was losing out oversight once it would go past those first 8 prime recipients. We weren't even a party of the account control agreement. And then we saw, like, for example, with this NGO connected to Stacey Abrams, they had to complete a training within 90 days called How to Develop a Budget. The Biden EPA decided that they were not yet prepared to develop a budget on their own without this remedial training. But what's crazier is that the grant agreement also gave them 21 days to start spending the money. So you're at day 0. You have 21 days to start spending $2 billion. You're at day 0. You have 90 days to complete training called How to Develop a Budget. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many other examples of what was wrong with this, and it was by design. This wasn't incompetence where they didn't know what they were doing. They did it on purpose. And here's the one really important point. When you hear anyone talk about environmental justice and the need for it is that there's some community that's been left behind, they have an environmental issue that needs to be remediated, they can say it in a way where I and so many others can agree with the idea, yes, there's a community that needs help dealing with an environmental issue. But here's the problem. In the name of environmental justice, they will waste tens of billions of dollars to fund their left-wing friends. I'm not here saying I want to take money from left-wing organizations and give them to right-wing organizations. I'm saying that if you spend $1 to fix an environmental issue, spend the dollar on fixing it rather than on a left-wing organization to tell us, and any activist organization to tell us we should be spending the next dollar on remediating that environmental issue.
It's amazing. It's amazing how the money was spent. It is entertaining. It's also sad. You gotta like either laugh or cry. Just really quickly, the multi-million-dollar EPA museum, which is like the size of a cubicle, and not that interesting. Like, what's going to happen with that? Like, so you're decommissioning it. What's happening with that?
It's going to be shut down. It's no longer going to be a museum. It was $4 million to build. It was $600,000 a year to operate. There was almost nobody who visited it. And I would just propose just a wild concept that if you're working at the EPA and you want to celebrate EPA history, why don't you put it in a place that actually gets traffic? We're in Washington, D.C. This is the capital of the United States. There's all sorts of museums that people come every single day to go visit. So if you want to put something about EPA history out and you want foot traffic, go somewhere where people actually visit. And it wouldn't cost us $4 million to build. It wouldn't cost $600,000 to operate. It wouldn't cost $1 to operate because these museums already exist. If I'm making too much sense, listen, we need more common sense in government. And you saw it because you were at the Biden EPA Museum before we made the decision to close it. You saw it firsthand. It made no sense to you on a gut check. This is your instinct. You just get it. And we need more of that in government.
Yes, just a really quick follow-up based on what you just said as a final question. When we were at the EPA, we just saw these even if the 16,000 employees of the EPA come back, it does seem like there's big office spaces that are just completely empty and won't be filled. And it seems like the government's doing that a lot. We're hearing a lot about this from Doge. Elon Musk sort of ferreted out this weekend that maybe there may be some corruption when it comes to members of Congress. He quote tweeted Chuck Schumer here. Donald Trump saying that there's horrendous findings, a brand new Doge finding of horrendous crimes and corruption. Carolyn Levitt saying the same thing from the White House. Since you sort of oversaw a massive empty office that has hopefully been rectified, but now you're shutting down leases, have you gotten any sense of that perhaps there's like some type of payola going on? Have you uncovered any corruption in that regard that you've alerted Doge to or they've alerted you to?
Yeah, I think that there's a ton that needs to be looked into. We've seen it with the amount of money that we spend on this office space, the amount of money that gets spent when you have to do work. Why is it that it costs so much more? You have to go to GSA and use their contractor, but the whole project is going to cost more than if EPA was to do it our own and we were put it out to bid and we get our own contractor. Like, why is there such a markup? And to your point about the empty spaces, there will be no empty spaces at the EPA headquarters. We will just continue to collapse our real estate footprint until there is no empty offices. Why? We owe that to the American taxpayer. It'd be nice to spread out. Everybody can get their own wing of a building, of a floor inside of Washington, D.C. But the American taxpayer deserves better. Yes. When you come back to EPA, you're not going to be able to do a tour where you're going to go into office after office after office and no one is there. We owe that to the American taxpayer to make sure we're showing up to work. And if you don't show up to work, you shouldn't be here, and your office should go back to wherever else the federal government or the private sector can make use of it with.
And as you said in the video, we're going to start watering our plants. That's amazing. We just want to thank you. Millions of people have seen have seen the tour of the EPA, and we look forward to coming back and doing more with you, Mr. Administrator. Godspeed. Thank you so much for your work. Everybody go follow Lee Zeldin. 430,000 Americans already do. Make sure we're giving power to the people who are fighting for us. Godspeed, sir.
Thanks, Benny.
The beauty of actually wearing the same thing every single day is that you can just pop in and out. We are live. Like 99% of the time we're live. I'll tell you if we have a pre-record, but it makes it very seamless, right? It was a very, very, very smooth transition. Let's transition here to the Ask Benny Anything section of the show. Want to make sure that we are locked and loaded for the press conference that will be happening very soon here. Does the Benny Show have any interest in allowing the Benny Show logo on the side of a semi-trailer with a QR code, 35 million truckers to see potential drive-by 10-15 state vicinity? Yes, from Eric Timmons. Yes. Hunt down Eric Timmons. Yes. Definitely. The answer is absolutely. Thank you, Eric. I mean that. Danny, Eric on our team, and ALX, I want to do that. And then we'll play when this happens, we'll show it to you. You can take cell phone footage when you're in Tampa, roll through the studio. Juiced Griffin. Now we know the art of the deal worked on Bill Maher. Do you think that who do you think should be the next visit to the White House? Me. Pretty easy, Juiced. Me. We will be going to the White House for the Easter egg roll. So next week. Come on. Trump, bring me into the Oval Office. Mary Miller says, how can we get more states to be fire red like Florida? Love the Benny Show. Well, we covered it on the program. This is what happened in Florida. Florida became blood red, immovably blood red, when we fixed the elections here. They had one last dying gasp to try and steal the elections in 2018 when Ron DeSantis was running, and they put that down. Matt Gaetz, to his forever endearing credit, stood in the gap with this lady named Barbara Snipes, Brenda Snipes, who was trying to wheel in all these piles of ballots. And Matt Gaetz stood down there and said, you're not going to wheel in giant trucks into a place called Broward County to go rig the election. Matt Gaetz stood there, stood the gap, and said, nope, you're not going to do it. It's amazing. That's how we do it. You fix your elections, and then every state becomes a red state. It's amazing. Thank you all, and thank you very much for Eric Timmons for this recommendation. Our verse of the day here, Proverbs 10:6. Blessings crown the head of the righteous, but violence overwhelms the mouth of the wicked. Make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you have a crown on your head as you head into the weekend here in the greatest country on earth. Make sure that you try your hardest to be righteous before God. We all need forgiveness and salvation, but make sure that violence is not overwhelming your mouth. Yeah, that's right. We're not violent people. We just want to save this country. And more importantly, we want to be the ones who do the saving, right? We can be God's hands and feet and light in this world. And so be part of that with us. A link in the description, just a reminder, a link in the description to go see the new Angel Studios, King of Kings. Be a great thing to do over the weekend. I'm going to do it with my kids, taking them to the theater. I'm going to take my kids to the theater for the first time. They've never been to the theater. We're going to go to the theater for the first time and see King of Kings. And we'll have a link where you can find your tickets in the description. And also, have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy it. Appreciate it. We have family in town. This is the greatest country on earth. It's a blessing to live here. And hold that blessing tight. We'll be holding tight for the press conference. A lot going on with Carolyn Leavitt at the White House. That'll be happening soon. We'll be live when that actually flips. Flips on. And so we'll be live on this channel. And thank you again for the 3 million subs. Just a wild let's talk about a blessing, man. For us, we've been working really hard on this. Okay. So if you just stay here, it'll redirect. ALX is telling me, so we have something very fancy that we can do here on YouTube, is that we can redirect the feed. We can redirect the feed directly to the next live, which will be again the Carolyn Leavitt White House press briefing. And so join us there. Again, a shout out to everybody who's followed along on YouTube. We thank you for the 3 million. It is wildly humbling, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate you. Big hearts to the chat. Again, we'll see you soon for this press secretary live briefing. God bless you. In this, the greatest country on earth, it is our greatest honor to fight alongside of you. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball!
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings, and their dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind, the salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun, we sail for #1. Show come to mind, the salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun, we sail for #1. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.